Welcome back to Rev It Up Bowling. My name is Jayson and we have a different type of video for you today. In comments, people have mentioned my form and kind of breaking it down. Now, I've never broken down my form, I guess, for anyone else, but we're gonna go over that today. And I'm just gonna touch on some key points that I want most bowlers, if you're trying to bowl kind of my style, to emulate. There's certain things that most bowlers should be doing. However, there are so many different styles out there. As long as you hit these basics, you can become a very good bowler. What we're gonna be doing is comparing myself to my magical camera guy, Ace. He's been a newer bowler. He's been bowling for about 2 years now, and we've been working together quite a bit to just develop him as a bowler. He didn't really have any experience starting out. During the comparisons, you're gonna see probably quite a few similarities between him and I, just because I know my game the best. So what we're gonna be doing is using an app called OnForm. We're gonna be comparing the analysis, and we will be just talking about it and touching on some key points. If you guys have any questions about form or anything like that, I am not a gold level coach or anything like that. I just know bowling for the most part, just been doing it forever. There's certain things that I can definitely spot out. However, regular coaching with people like Mark Baker, Jazz now is my coach. We get lessons a couple times a year, but he coaches a lot of guys on tour. So look out for Mike Jazz now, you know, the Kegel program, go down to USBC in Texas, stuff like that, that can definitely help your form. But video analysis by far is the most important, and you can do all that at home. Without further ado, let's get into it. What we're gonna be doing first is I'm gonna pull up a video of mine. I'm just gonna talk about starting position to start out. Then we'll do some comparisons. As far as my game goes, what I try to do with my game is really pay attention to transfer of energy. Try to be as efficient as humanly possible. Some of the guys on tour are just stupid efficient when it comes to the release and everything like that. They can put a lot less into the ball but get more out of it. And over the course of 20 games or so, it definitely helps. For me, my number one thing I always focus on is efficiency and trying to be not necessarily smooth, but just try to transfer energy from myself to the bowling ball in an efficient manner, of course. What we're gonna be doing first is I am looking at a backwards view of my approach. It's pretty simple. What we're gonna be doing is just starting out with starting position to start. The first thing you're gonna notice about my game is I've taken a lot of key things from a lot of the good bowlers on tour. Some of the guys I love watching, Kyle Sherman. I went to Lindenwood, bowled with Kyle, and when I went to Lindenwood, I was not a great bowler. I was good, but I wasn't great by any stretch. So bowling with Team USA and now PBA winner Kyle Sherman, I stole a lot from him. It was just, he was there. I get to watch him every day. A lot of the things he does, I've tried to put into my game. Also, guys, I've tried to look at Prather. Certain parts of his game I really enjoy. Darren Tang, of course, and EJ Tackett. For the most part, those are the guys I like to emulate. When I was young, it was Tommy Jones, Bill O'Neill, those guys that had a very modern game for the time and still have a modern game today. I would probably describe my game as, I wouldn't say totally a power player. I would say like a smoother power player. You know, I'm not as high rev or as high speed as McCune, right? Or even Tackett. He just has a ungodly rev, right? But so for me, I can hook a bowling ball, but I'm definitely not doing the sort of things that, you know, EJ, McCune, those high speed, high rev players are doing. I would definitely say I'm a high rev, moderate speed kind of player. I can get the speed up. However, it's not necessarily my A game. What we're gonna be doing is talking about starting position first. The first thing you guys are gonna notice when looking at this recording is when I start my approach or when I get set up, basically what I'm looking to do is set up in the position to where my head, ball, and shoulder arm are basically within a swing window, we like to call it. This will allow me to, you know, drop that right shoulder a little bit, get my head over the ball, over the swing, and be able to have a straighter swing path in order to be more accurate. If I get my head over the bowling ball, I don't have to worry about perception as much. And kind of, if I can start that way, it kind of helps throughout the whole approach. With my starting position, Pretty basic. Again, I'm just trying to get, you know, that bowling ball basically right about here. In some videos, if you're right behind the shoulder, this one's a little bit to the left, you should maybe see a teensy bit of bowling ball, but you don't want to see any more than half a bowling ball, and you don't always want to see it hidden either. If I'm really trying to swing the bowling ball, I might pull it closer to my body just to get a bigger loop. However, for the most part, everything's going to be pretty much straight. So with that said, we're going to start it up a little bit. When I start my approach, I am a 5-step bowler. 4 or 5, it doesn't really matter as long as you're consistent with it and you can transfer energy properly. With my first step, what you're gonna notice, and this, we will look at the side view a little bit more. On my first step with a 5-step approach, I really try not to move the bowling ball much. The 5-step is really just for timing, some momentum, and I don't need to get the ball started. If anything, one of the things I've worked on with Jazz now is holding that ball through the first step and then dropping it into the second. But as far as starting position goes, that's about it. You know, just get that right shoulder dropped a little bit. And this is really geared towards, you know, my style of bowling. Of course, you know, if you're, you know, used to the old style, you know, keep everything square, play up the lane, maybe you're a little bit older, you might be able to take some keys from this, but especially the younger crowd, to be more power players, the youth right now are really, really good. They can do their, you know, put their body in positions to get as much efficiency as power as possible, and we can see it with the use coming up right now. So I'm not going to compare this to ace right now, just because our starting positions are pretty dang similar, but the most important thing is just getting that head, ball, and arm, shoulder all in roughly a straight line. That way we're not, you know, looking one way and our arms another way, so our perception, and we can hit our mark a little bit easier. So as we go with the push away, we're gonna go to a side view real quick. And this is where we will definitely do some comparison with the side view. As we start, as you can see right now, the ball itself, you know, right there, of course. I'm not trying to do anything crazy with my setup. What I'm trying to do is put, you know, 60, 70% of the weight in my left hand, make sure I keep my right arm as loose as possible. I want to put as much grip strength into the bowling ball to hold on to it, but not much more than that. I want to keep that hand, that arm as loose as possible to be able to transfer efficiency. When we start muscling the ball, we will start losing that efficiency. And there's guys, of course, that muscle the ball and they're really, really good. But for me, being kind of an average sized person, not the strongest, not the weakest, I need efficiency for sure. Especially with, you know, wrist injury and stuff like that. I just want to make sure that I can get the most out of the ball without tearing on my body too much. When we start our approach, oops, that was the other way. When we start our approach, again, on that first step, I'm really not trying to move the ball much. Now, I will say if Mike watches this right now, he will tell me I'm moving the ball too much on my first step, which probably is true, but that's not something I've paid attention to much, but it's a lot better than it ever used to be. On my first step here, we're still roughly in that same starting position. Now, once I start with my right foot, then that ball starts engaging, starts moving downward. The idea is to have my feet carry the weight of the swing. So when I take this step, I don't want this ball to be, you know, out here a lot, to be out here. I don't want it to be, you know, pushing away a ton this way or anything like that. I really just want that ball to be able to be in a position to where my right foot can catch all of that weight. And you can kind of see that here. Once we get that foot laid down, once we can take that step, that ball is now here right over the top of my toe, about, you know, I'd say about right above your kneecap to about a ball above your kneecap is pretty much what we're looking for. And that way, once that ball kind of hits that bottom of the swing here, right about there, that foot it's planted and I can catch all of that weight, right? And then when I step through, you know, it's still pivoting off that foot. That ball is still moving backwards. However, I'm able to catch all that weight with that right foot. With a comparison to Mr. Ace, let's hop into here. Let's see, Ace, side view. Where's he at? Where's he at? Boop, that one. All right, with Ace, let's get this backed up a little bit. All right, Let's get right there. Link. Oh, a little bit too far. Link. Okay. As you can see here with Ace and myself, we have a pretty similar starting position. The biggest difference is where Ace starts his ball. He starts a little bit lower, which isn't a bad thing. Again, it's still all about timing and efficiency. So I like to sometimes start my ball a little lower if I need to throw it harder. Kind of shortens up the swing, makes my feet move a little bit faster, and I can transfer that energy. However, with this one, there's some things that Ace does really, really well, and there's some things that he definitely needs to work on it for sure. The first thing is with his first step. As you can see, our first steps are pretty different. So he probably takes a full 1.5 feet or so. I'm about 1 foot in front of me as far as how far that step goes. Good and bad, like for Ace, you know, he doesn't move that ball in the first step, which is great, but he's kind of carrying the ball. It's not in a position here to provide much energy when you do make the push away. It's a little low, and he's kind of carrying it a teensy bit. Stop it. Some of the things that I would probably work on with Ace would be to get this ball maybe up a little bit more and in a position to where it can fall into the swing a little bit more efficiently. As we move forward a little bit more, right here, I'd say right there. Right now, Ace's bowling ball has kind of moved from here, kind of went kind of straight down a little bit. He's kind of carrying it a teensy bit and hasn't dropped it into the swing quite right yet. We'll definitely be working on that for sure, but you can kind of see the comparison here where when I take my first step, that ball is still in a basically horizontal line. It hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down really, and hasn't really moved outward. It's still in that position to where when I drop it into the swing and my right foot can catch it, it's going to be as efficient as possible. For the most part, obviously, I still got stuff to work on too. I will always have stuff to work on. But then we get to this position, and we get to this position. So clear that. So Ace's right foot has now planted, right? I'm going to unlink this. That way I can get into the same position right there. Ace's right foot has planted. As we can see here, you know, where that ball is, right here, and then right here, we can see that my bowling ball is kind of right over my foot. I've dropped it into the swing now at this point, and that when that ball is coming down, it's going to hit the peak of the downswing, basically right over my foot. That way I have all of my right foot to catch that ball. With Ace right now, as we move forward a little bit, oops, that's not what I wanted, clear. As we move forward a little bit, we can see that ball has already kind of got there, and it's a little bit ahead of time. Also, when he drops into the swing, he kind of just lowers it. There's really not much of a drop there. And what that does is it doesn't allow Ace to have as much energy on the backswing. What that promotes is pulling up on the backswing, which makes your arm tighter, which usually promotes pulling down on the backswing as well. So one of the things Ace and I will be definitely working on is working on the starting position in order to get that ball dropped into the swing at about my timing or so. Obviously, everyone's a little different in order to create some more efficiency. As we move forward a little bit more with the side comparison, right? Ace is right here. And honestly, he's in a very similar position. I am about right here. Very, very similar. I mean, we can see the similarities between them. The biggest difference is that push away. I've provided a lot more potential energy with my push away, dropping into the swing. Ace has kind of carried it a little bit. And right now, there's not much moving the ball backwards besides himself, which again, we want efficiency. We want to use less muscle, and we will actually get more out of the ball when we're just smoother. And you can just see that with guys like Prather, with Kyle, Tackett, of course. Those guys really don't pull down or pull up on the ball much at all. They just let their body work and let their shoulder position as a pendulum, you know, swing the ball back and forth without doing much to it. So as we move through the approach a little bit, we're starting to get to this point, right? And move me forward a teensy bit. All right, again, pretty similar. There's a few things I would probably point out. The left arm does mean quite a bit. What's connecting the left arm to the right arm? Well, your shoulders. If you do anything to the left arm, it's probably gonna affect your shoulders and then affect your right arm. It's very much like a live axle on a car, if you guys can think of that. One side will affect the other side. So when we're pulling back and everything, you can see Ace's left arm. It's kind of dropped down in front of him a little bit, maybe off to the left. One of the things we're definitely going to want to work on is getting that arm swing a little bit more in front of him early. What that's going to do is he's going to provide him more balance. Also, it's going to keep this left arm a little bit quieter, and there's going to be a lot less loss of efficiency and potential energy because this left arm isn't doing a bunch of stuff. So with mine, I do move my left arm a decent amount. I need to get better at it, but at the end of the day, I get to the right points, which is about right here. Now Ace, his left arm, again, is dropped down quite a bit in front of him. What we're probably going to want to do is get that left arm pointed a little bit more in front of him. That way he has just general balance, and that can kind of help him with that. When we get to the top of the swing, now obviously my arm swing goes much higher, but we're not going to focus on that too much. It's the efficiency when he gets there. So he is now pivoting off of his power step, and his arm swing is going down about right there. That's about the peak, right? My peak is about right here. In these positions, it's pretty dang similar. Obviously, Ace is a little bit more compact in his swing and everything, which is fine. It's no big deal. It's just body differences. So when we get to the top of the swing, we really want the ball to float up there. Like if I was to catch this bowling ball on my swing right here, if I was to catch that with my hand, my elbow here, the feeling I want is it to be floating. Again, when you muscle a bowling ball, typically you're going to decelerate, and a lot of the times you're not going to be as efficient muscling a ball as just letting the ball swing itself. And also it's going to be a little bit easier on your body. When we get to the top of the swing, the biggest thing we really don't want to do, there's a couple key things that we'll look at here real quick. Here we have On Form has a nice little like joint thing in order to kind of show where your arm swing, your elbow, all that sort of stuff is. We're going to create this nice little T here, bam, bam. That definitely helps. It's kind of that classic, or that modern game that we're all kind of looking for. But at the top of the swing, when it comes down, the number one thing I see a lot of people do is they'll start pulling down. Now, when you start pulling down from the top of the swing, there's a problem with that. We really want a pendulum effect. We really want the ball to go up and then down, right? We don't really want it to do a much of like dropping straight down and you got to catch it kind of thing. When you pull that ball from the top, it really promotes that swing path to go straight down, and then you got to catch it and then send it forward, of course, right? If we can let that swing just drop from the top and let that swing just naturally create that arc, we're gonna have a lot bigger flat spot, and I will get into what a flat spot is here in a second. So on the top of the swing, one thing Ace does a little bit is he does pull down. Now, again, it's not because he pulls down from the top. I think a lot of it has to do with his push away. Right now, he's having to muscle up to the top, which tightens up the muscles, right? You're activated those, and the tendency is to just pull down from the top. That's one thing Ace does a little bit here is he will start pulling down from the top. What that does there is promote a little bit straighter downward swing, a teensy bit. Now Ace has got a lot better with this. He used to be really bad, but right now it's kind of promoting a downward swing. One of the other things too is timing. Everyone has a little bit different timing, right? It's still all about putting your body, your feet in the right position to catch all that weight. So as far as timing goes, that can be kind of variable. However, one thing about Ace's game that we probably want to fix is his timing. He's very much early. Our timing for the first 2 steps or so is pretty similar, but once that ball gets to the top of the swing, it definitely changes. So, oops, I keep touching it. There we go. All right, so when we get to the bottom of the swing, some things that Ace does really, really well. And we'll zoom in a little bit here. He really gets that hand underneath the bowling ball, which is great. That's really what we're looking for. Really just make sure that hand is behind the ball and under the ball as possible. If we can get under the ball more and we can get out of it quicker, that equals to higher rev rate. And that's why you see guys like Tackett and two-handers especially. Two-handers are already underneath the ball. I mean, their whole ball is sitting on their palm and they can get under it quite a bit. That's why it's much easier to have a higher rev rate two-handed than one-handed, because you don't have to clear the thumb and you don't have it in the way to get under the ball. But for a one-handed with a thumb, Oops, stop it. There we go. With a one-hander with a thumb, we still want that ball or that hand right basically where ace is. With me, zoom in a little bit. Oops. No, stop it. There we go. With me, we get to a very similar position here. Again, my hand, I mean, it's not the most under as a lot of other people. Lavery Spars, for example, is a very unique approach, but he gets under the ball super, super well, and it's great. So as we go to release, there's a few things that I want you guys to look at in your own game. The first thing is making sure that your head, foot, and knee are all on the same plane. As you can see here, my head, my knee, my foot is all over itself. It's all within one line. What that's gonna do is provide you the best base in order to have that ball swing through without pulling you off balance. The one thing Ace needs to work on a little bit more is timing. As you can see here, if you watch his slide foot, it's still sliding a little bit. Now there's guys who are still sliding when they throw the bowling ball, but their timing is usually a little bit later. So Ace's timing is a little too early right now. And what's happening is he doesn't have a solid base under him to carry that bowling ball, to carry that leverage. So in order for him to throw the ball, he just has to kind of get out of it. He loses a lot of efficiency at that point. What we're gonna be doing for sure with Ace is try to get this arm swing, get this ball, once he stops, I want it, about right there. When I stop sliding, and I know I fouled, guys, it's okay. So I stop sliding about right here. Ace is still sliding and his ball is very much more in front of him. What we're gonna be doing for sure is getting this bowling ball a little bit more behind in timing. That way he can create that flat spot and be more efficient upon release. The other thing I just wanted to touch on the side view real quick is your left arm position and then also your shoulder position. So I'm sure everyone's kind of heard of the pendulum effect. We want to keep that right shoulder static, keep it back, right? We want that shoulders open a little bit more and just let that shoulder just pendulum, let it be free. What I see with a lot of bowlers, especially newer, they want to see the ball hook, right? They're gearing up, they're trying to put their body into it. The problem with that is, like I mentioned before, it's not very efficient. Also, there's a lot more moving parts in the swing, and it's harder to keep everything in time when there are that much more moving parts. One thing Ace does that's actually pretty decent, and he's learned how to do this quite a bit, but it still needs some work, is this shoulder position. So when we're coming through on the swing, right, if we were watching Ace right now, we want this shoulder to stay back, right? Stay open, of course, a little bit, but we never want that shoulder to roll over. Once we have that shoulder roll forward, roll over, this elbow will promote chicken wing a little bit, right? You're gonna lose a lot more leverage. If you're lifting something heavy and you're lifting it out here, it's gonna feel a lot heavier than if you have your shoulder back and you're lifting it kind of like a curl. Exactly the same thing. When we're looking at shoulder position, we really just wanna keep that shoulder as static as possible. We really don't want that thing moving forward. Now, if you feel like I'm trying to keep my shoulder back, but nothing's working, it keeps coming forward, take a look at your left arm. Make sure that that left arm is staying in front of you a little bit longer, because once we pull that left arm back, this right arm will move forward. And that's one thing I've been having to work on quite a bit. When I drop my ball into my swing, my natural tendency, especially here a couple years ago, would be to get this left arm out. And then when I come through with the bowling ball, I'm really creating a washing machine effect and pulling that left arm outside of me, and that closes my shoulders and gets my elbow outside of my swing position. So that's just an efficiency thing. Pay attention to your shoulders. Again, we just want that swing and that body, not necessarily detached. We just really want that shoulder in a static position, kind of roll back a little bit and just really let that swing fall into the slot. When we get to the top of the swing, we don't want to pull or anything like that. We really want that swing to drop next to our body, keep that shoulder back, and that'll provide us the most leverage as possible. With that said, yeah, as you can see with mine, obviously when you release the ball, like right at the end, it's gonna roll forward some. It happens, it's the body. But when we were releasing the ball, we really just want to keep that shoulder as static as possible, and that will help keep our arm swing loose and in the right swing path. Now, as I mentioned, swing path, we're going to look at some behind views of both of us. When I'm talking swing path, when we throw a bowling ball, it's technically going in a straight line to start, right? If we have a lot of left to right movement with our body, our arm swing, or anything like that, it can really throw off our projection. One of the things I want you guys to look at as me as an example, right? My head's here, you know, I'm just gonna go right through my butt and then right on the right side of my shoulder. Now I drift left a little bit. It's probably one of the worst parts of my game just because it throws off my perspective, my angles. If I'm drifting left, the angles where I stand on the approach are gonna be different than when I slide. I've got pretty good at managing that, but I used to slide like 9, 10 left, my drift. Now it's down to about 4 to 6 or so. Sometimes it varies a little bit. So, but at the same time, when we drift left a little bit, it's fine. You can drift left some, you can drift right a little bit, no big deal. But the most important thing is making sure your body doesn't get in the way or out of the way too much. As we watch this one, oops, there we go. Go back. All right, as we watch this one, I'm gonna move this a little too much. All right, as we're looking at this, go back to the first video. There we go. All right, the idea is to have my head, my ball, my shoulder, my arm, kind of all in the same line. I got my head, I got my elbow, and I got the bowling ball. We really want that ball, that swing to be kind of in that straight line. We don't really want it to bounce outside or inside of this kind of box. We want to keep that swing not straight by any means. You know, if you're a power player, you probably have a figure eight, you will like big angles, you want to get the ball looped right. However, there are some similarities that we do want to tackle, and that is making sure that your head, your elbow, and the bowling ball are all kind of within the same line, right? As we're going through this approach, right, everything's in a straight line, and then this is where, once I get to the top of the backswing, I really get that ball moved inside next to my body as much as possible to provide as much leverage as possible. It's okay to have a figure eight. That's no big deal. I mean, tack it. I mean, it's one of the biggest figure eights on tour. However, I mean, he's a power player. He likes big angles, but he can play straight if he needs to. Just close up the shoulders a little bit. So I will say, like, my A game is definitely wheeling the lane a little bit. Playing up the gutter takes me a few shots to just get comfortable. So it's definitely not my A game. I'm gonna do a comparison with Ace again here, but the similarities is we just really want that swing path relatively in that kind of swing path, that box, right, that I created. We're gonna go ahead and compare this to Ace. Compare, add, Ace. Where'd you go, Ace? There you go. Select. All right. What we see with Ace is, again, we're gonna go ahead and create this little window, little box. And I will say one of the things that we probably need to work on with Ace, drop this right shoulder down a teensy bit right here. Just drop it down just a little bit in order to move his head over a little bit, get it over the swing a teensy bit more. Let's go ahead and redraw those lines. Oops, that's a really bad line. Move that over, All right, let's get me back in my starting position. It's about right there. I'm gonna go and link them, go like that. Boof. All right. As we travel, oops, the other way. We're just gonna keep moving forward in slow-mo. All right, everything looks pretty good. My line's a little off. Right there and right there. Here we go. All right, we can see now, again, drifting. Your box may move a little bit. Ace does drift a decent amount, especially on his third step here. You can see his left foot just walk dead left. That's one thing we're gonna be working on as well. He's kind of walking away from the swing a little bit. One of the things that promotes as well is getting the ball behind your butt. Now, as you can see, top of the backswing is about right there on both of us. I'll zoom those in a little bit. As you can see, Ace has completely walked outside of that swing path, and right now his ball is right behind his butt, right behind his back. Obviously, if he was to drop the swing straight down, it's just gonna hit him. He's gonna eat it and fall down and cry a little bit. But his body's smart enough to be like, hey, I don't want this 15-pound ball hitting me in the back of the leg. What happens is, right, and it even gets even farther behind. You can see in this position, you know, my head and the bowling ball and my swing slot, right here, when I talk swing slot, is right about there, right? It's all basically in the straight line, especially at the top of the backswing. With Ace, you can see that it is moved quite left out of the back, or out of the swing path. What that does is when it comes down, you can see Ace have to redirect the swing or it's gonna go in the gutter, which if we watch it, it nearly does, right? It's a ton of open angle. and we just don't want that. What it does promotes a lot of angles or open angles early, and it's a lot harder to get squared up. Also, with that said, in order for him to correct that swing and not hit his butt, he's gonna have to put some muscle into it in order to redirect the swing. He loses a lot of efficiency at that point, which affects everything else, his release and everything. When he gets to the bottom of the swing, and I will unlink and move me forward a little bit. When he gets to the bottom of the swing, it actually looks very similar between the two of us. The problem, like if I was to take this screenshot, you'd be like, oh, they throw it probably pretty similar. However, if you watch, literally the last half a second, you're gonna see Ace's ball have to come from behind his back and get redirected forward a little bit more. What this does is, in order for him to redirect, what he's probably gonna have to do is close those shoulders. That way the ball is not sending it to the gutter, which we've already learned that we wanna keep that shoulder back for efficiency and to provide as much leverage as possible. Just from him having that ball loop a little bit more behind his back, he's losing so much efficiency in so many different areas. We're gonna clear that. We're gonna go ahead and just watch Ace a little bit in slow-mo from the top of the backswing. In this position, everything looks pretty good, right? And then as we're going a little bit more, that ball is really looping behind his back. When you watch like EJ Tackett, the ball loops, obviously, we can see that, but the ball never gets behind his back. He's not having to redirect much at all. When that swing comes down, is as efficient as anyone else on the planet, and it's still within that swing path. So, one of the things we're gonna definitely be working on with Ace is making sure that we get that ball more in a straight line. He's got plenty of loop. We don't have to work on that. If anything, we're gonna calm it down a little bit. Get that more in a straight line. That way, that ball can be more directed down lane and not have to be redirected left to right in any way. With that said, the last thing I just want to go over as far as breaking down the form, again, I think very methodical with my game. I'm really into energy, especially with like bowling balls and stuff like that. Very, very nerdy. And when I take a look at my game, that is the definition of what I want, is as efficient as possible. That way I can bowl as long as I possibly can without hurting myself. Now, I did have to go to 14, it's fine for me right now, but I would like to go to 15 at some point. So what we're gonna look at next is release position. We're gonna have that one. We're gonna go here, we're gonna clear, and then we're gonna compare it to me. Close up, rear view. Okay, select, again, clear. All right, so again, we were talking about keeping the hand behind and inside of that bowling ball, right? And making sure this elbow stays tucked in. We really want to promote, if you want to be a power player, you're gonna need to learn the yo-yo effect. Rev rate doesn't come from the wrist. It comes from the elbow. Basically, having the elbow, there's a scientific word for it, but basically how much the elbow will bend will kind of be based on how much rev rate you have as well. For me, I am a high rev player. However, I don't have a massive bend in my elbow. If you watch Tackett, those guys, their arms should bend in crazy positions. However, there's more than one way to get higher rev rate. If you guys look at Prather, you would think like, oh, he really gets his elbow into it, which is true, but he is very much a more straight arm kind of bowler. He doesn't have tons of elbow fluctuation as far as that yo-yo effect. However, he's so efficient that he can transfer all the energy into the ball that he needs. He's still a 475, 500 rev rate kind of guy, and he's silky smooth doing it. The yo-yo effect is very, very important. However, it's not like you have to gear up, really get that elbow inside and do some crazy stuff. We just really want that elbow position to stay underneath our head, and then upon release, we can go ahead and unleash it. You can see here with my game, when the ball gets inside, I'm behind the ball, as you can see here. My hand and everything is nicely behind the ball, right? Oh, that's not what I wanted. Where are you? There. As you can see, it is nicely behind the bowling ball. Now, there's other guys who work the inside of the ball a lot more. Again, Tackett, two-handers can work the inside of the ball a lot. But for my physical capabilities, I'm not going to be working much more than this. However, I don't necessarily need a lot more rev rate. I have quite a bit of it. If anything, I need a little bit more speed and be a little bit more efficient that way. When we go to release the bowling ball, again, we want that elbow tucked inside of us. And when we go to release it, that should be basically at our foot or in front of our foot. We really don't want to promote hitting the ball a little too early. We're going to get it jammed into the lane. We're going to lose efficiency. And that's kind of a little bit what Ace does a teensy bit. As far as his hand position goes, his hand and everything used to be completely on the side of the bowling ball. I mean, his hand was like right here. Just from the last couple of years working together, we've been able to correct that. However, he needs to get a little bit more efficient with it. One of the things here, you can see when we do release the ball, you can see kind of how far his right shoulders move forward. As you can see, mine has still stayed back a little bit, and that really promotes that yo-yo effect. You can get that shoulder in more in a leverage position. With Ace, he kind of brings it forward a little too early. However, the reason he does that is, again, he has to redirect quite a bit. As you can see with this shot, the gray boards don't hook. So the reason for that is again, that swing kind of gets behind his back some, right? And then it promotes sending it right early. And it also promotes, when you get the shoulder rolled around, you're gonna get your elbow outside the ball. That's kind of some of the things that we're gonna work on. As far as what I look at when I break down my form, efficiency as much as possible. I want, when the ball comes down, I want my body to be able to catch it and then put my body in a position to provide as much leverage as possible in as efficient of a way as possible. Again, I'm not a big person by any stretch, so muscling the ball is not my forte. So I need to do everything through efficiency. When you guys are looking at your own game, there's a few key points I want you to touch on, and hopefully you caught some stuff from this review that you can emulate into your own game. The number one thing is making sure that your head, your shoulder, your ball are all relatively in a straight line. A lot of the older bowlers were really, really good at this just because, that was the name of the game. There's a lot of up the boards, keep everything square, and a lot straighter arm swings. The modern game has a lot more loop in the swing just because they're going to be hooking the ball a lot more, provide more power, more rev rate. And the second thing is making sure you work the inside or behind the bowling ball. A lot of people, a lot of newer bowlers especially, think in order to hook the bowling ball, they're going to flare their arm out and try to get as much into it as possible. A ball is a lot like a car tire. It needs to roll in order to do what it's supposed to do. If you're spinning the ball and just kind of whipping on it, you're going to be really inefficient with it, and really it doesn't promote hook much at all. Especially if you're spinning it like a top, it's not going to do anything. We really want that ball to be rolling forward. Obviously, we want some rotations, tilt, higher tilt, lower tilt. Kind of depends on you as a bowler. Pro shop operators should drill accordingly. But the most important thing is making sure you stay behind the bowling ball and get under it as much as you're physically able to. As you can see, I have a 475, sometimes a 500 rev rate. I can fluctuate a little bit. And I'm not, totally inside the bowling ball. I don't have the biggest, yo-yo effect or anything like that. It all comes from efficiency and being able to just, transfer the energy from my body through the bowling ball. So the other thing too is strengthening. I'm a big advocate for doing work outside of bowling. If you are bowling, maybe drill up a lighter bowling ball. That way you don't have to put as much stress on your body. But if you're not bowling, there's certain things that I try to do to just strengthen my body, get a little bit more flexible. Being flexible is a big thing. Just spending the 15 minutes or so stretching every day will help reduce injury. I'm very prone to injury, so I need to do that. But also be able to put your body in a position that it's not typically used to. If it feels weird, you're probably doing it right. It's just like anything else. I took up golf last summer. It feels all sorts of weird when I do it right. When I do it wrong, I'm like, oh, that looks great. And it's slicing 30 yards right. So if it feels weird, it's probably in the right direction. The other thing too, guys, is when you are working on your game, video is everything. If you can sit there at home and watch yourself throw 100 shots, well, that's 100 shots you don't have to do physically. It's the mental portion of it. And that's what helps me quite a bit. I honestly haven't done a full practice session in months. I do bowl league, I bowl tournaments, I do YouTube. I bowl enough, right, to stay sharp, but I'm not really working on anything at the moment. During the season, I don't really like to, just because I want to focus on making sure that I can be comfortable, focus on one swing thought, or if I'm in the zone, no swing thoughts at all, and not have to worry about, oh, where's my left foot going? Oh, where's my right foot going? Just try to kind of throw all that aside and just work on scoring. So if you guys have any questions about form or have any questions or anything I missed on this, again, I'm not a professional coach. I can break down my swing, help people here locally and everything like that. But there's guys out there, again, like Mark Baker, Mike Jasnow, all those kind of guys. If you guys go to the Nationals, check out Mike. He's down there in Vegas right now for the next couple months, and he does lessons, and he is a wizard. He works with a lot of the pros. So a couple years ago, I worked with him for the first time, and it transformed my game. As far as going back to strengthening a little bit, if you guys have hand problems or wrist problems, grab a bucket of rice and just squeeze the hell out of it. It really works on strengthening your hand in a low impact kind of way, or grab, stress ball or something like that to keep that wrist warm and work on that hand and flexibility. So again, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. This is kind of a first time a video kind of like this. Again, I'm not a professional coach, so please don't destroy me in the comments like, hey, you're an idiot. What about this? What about that? I'm all for learning. I'm all for comments, stuff like that. But again, take this with a grain of salt. I really know my game. I know Ace's game. I've worked with a lot of people here locally, but I would not call myself a professional coach by any means. I'm just a nerd, and I've been around bowling literally my whole life. So if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you like this video, smash that like button. It helps the channel more than you may think. And if you want to go a little bit step further, hit that subscribe button. We're growing pretty quick, and we're excited to see what we can do over the summer. We're going to be releasing quite a few videos in the summer just because it's the off season. I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands, and I'll be practicing a lot more. So expect some practice sessions to come up, talk about things I'm working on personally, and kind of go from there. The goal is to bowl tour. However, I am trying to figure out that fiscally to make it all work without, putting my mortgage and all that stuff in jeopardy. And kudos to all the pros out there that just focus on bowling, just do that for a living. It's a stressful job, and it's a job. It's a passion, but it's a full-time job. So if you guys like this video, please let me know. My name is Jayson Robarge. My man Ace is here on the tablet and behind the camera. We're Rev It Up Bowling. Much love. Peace.